Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. The 80th Allstate Sugar Bowl is in the bank, and it was a shocker as Oklahoma beat Alabama, beat them by 2 touchdowns. More importantly, the way Oklahoma scored on Alabama was shocking. And Lenny, you give the Sooners all the credit in the world, whether Alabama was ready to play or not.
Absolutely. And, a lot of talk going into the game with some of the things that Bob Stoops said during the year about the lesser half of the SEC and, would Alabama try to take that out on them? Alabama came in a better than 2-touchdown favorite in this game. At the end of the day, maybe the more desperate team won. We've heard that before. This is an Oklahoma team that came in off a win over Oklahoma State, spoiling their in-state rivals' chance to go to a BCS game. And then, this game, and so much of the history with these two programs, but at the end of the day, hey, give Oklahoma credit for what they were able to do. And, their quarterback played a nearly flawless game. They forced 4 turnovers, which turned into 28 points. And you put that combination together, and you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, you said it. As good as the quarterback played, when you have 4 turnovers, which become 28 points, that's it. End of story, game over. And Alabama did not play well at all. I have not seen their defense be riddled as badly as they were in this game, other than against Texas A&M. But then again, they scored enough to beat Texas A&M. Bottom line, I think the blueprint against Alabama is obvious. You got to throw the ball, make them play on the perimeter, and make them play down the field. If you can protect the quarterback long enough to do it, you can have success. Oklahoma did. It was a good game, and Oklahoma won, and they deserve to win, and they made a statement about where they're going in the future as a result. Of course, the Allstate Sugar Bowl National Prep Basketball Classic continues. Full coverage at SportsNOLA.com, and some really good games on day one, some very close games. And, of course, we expect that to be the case moving forward. Lenny, always a good event.
It is, and some terrific high school basketball in the area and some teams from outside the area as well. See how they match up. And, we're getting ready. We're closing in on district play. This is really the last big event before district play gets rolling later this month, and a chance to see, how these teams stack up in the area.
The New Orleans Saints will open their quest for a Super Bowl championship, but they're going to have to do it the hard way on the road the whole time, starting at Philadelphia. That's step one, and they've got to win there, and it's a tough place to win. They're 3-point underdogs against the Eagles, who have won 7 of 8 games, have won their last 4 games at home, have averaged over 33 points a game in their last 8 games. So you get the picture. This is a tough test for the Saints when you throw in the weather as well.
It is, and it's going to be cold, but the good news is it's going to be dry. At this point, look, Arizona could have beaten San Francisco on Sunday, and we'd be talking about the Saints going to Green Bay and minus 30 wind chills. So it's, this is really the lesser of several evils out there when it comes to weather. This will not be as bad as it could be. And at some point, you just got to go out and play. The Saints have won games before when it's cold, and there's no reason why they can't do it again. It's, in my mind, the thing that's more important than the offense in this case is it's the defense. This Eagles offense is different than anything you see in the NFL. We see it a lot in college, and Chip Kelly has taken some of those principles of what he used at Oregon and has brought it into the NFL. And so far, they're still trying to figure it out a little bit. Shady McCoy led the NFL in rushing this year. Nick Foles was sensational. And exactly how that plays out, the Eagles offense against the Saints defense, I think at the end of the day will determine the winner of this football game.
As you read in my blog at SportsNOLA.com today, this game, the numbers all point to the Eagles. They all point to the Eagles winning this football game, which is why they're favored to win. And yet the Saints obviously are a team that has something to prove. Still, I'm one of those skeptics, Lenny. I'm one of those you're guilty until proven innocent. And I've not seen the Saints play well on the road in a long time. I've not seen the Saints play well on the road in the playoffs. I've not seen the Saints play well on the road in cold weather.
You're right, and it's until you the old Missouri theory. Show me, until you show me you can do something. But remember this too: Nick Foles has never played in a playoff game. Chip Kelly has never coached in a playoff game. One of those things I like when we get around to March and start talking about the basketball tournament. It's one of the things I always try to look for there. I try to find those teams that haven't been in that situation before and see how they're going to handle it, because a lot of times they don't handle it. And that's one thing to consider in this is, there's some guys who are around from the Andy Reid days who have been part of playoff teams, been part of winning teams, but right at the top with the quarterback and the coach, neither one of them have.
Well, there are some interesting notes to follow in this game. The Eagles, Their defense is on the field longer than any team in the NFL, which has a lot to do with the kind of offense they're running. And the Saints have dominated time of possession all year long. That's an important element in this game. Keep an eye on that. Of course, turnovers, as Lenny mentioned, the other key element in this game. And the biggest number of all, very obvious. When the Saints don't turn the ball over under Sean Payton, they're 25-0. It's that simple. Don't turn the football over, you're going to win. But it's easier said than done. The New Orleans Pelicans, Boston Celtics are up next. Then they're on to Indiana. Lenny, obviously they had their best performance of the year against Portland and beat the best team this year that they've beaten, obviously. But then they turned around and they were like a sieve in Minneapolis. Minnesota scored 124 points, and they called off the Dogs, didn't even play their starters in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's disappointing that you can't follow up a good performance with another solid effort. But in an 82-game season in the NBA, it's going to happen. I really think, as impressive as the win over Portland was, you talk about games in good spots, and I think that was a game in a good spot. They caught Portland coming off a last-second loss at home to Miami. They had to travel cross-country to play a game 2 nights later on the first of a back-to-back where they had Oklahoma City on the second of the back-to-back. So Miami, Oklahoma City with New Orleans in between. I think the Pelicans caught a good spot there. As for Minnesota, you could say that Minnesota caught New Orleans in a good spot, coming off an emotional win in a last-second situation on a jumper by Tyreek Evans. Catching them coming off of that on the first of a road trip. So let's see what happens these next 2 nights, or certainly Friday night with Boston. That's really the best chance to win on this road trip as it stands now, with Indiana and Miami, the 2 best teams in the East, still to come.
Last but not least, of course, National Recruiting Signing Day coming up, and another one of these All-Star games made for TV, the Under Armour All-American game taking place, and people interrupting the game to go to a stage to make announcements, and they put gloves on now. I can't stand this whole production. It's gotten totally ridiculous. It's made for television, and it's glorifying kids, and I don't like any aspect of it. That said, it is what it is, and I don't blame the kids in any way, shape, or form, but we've made an absolute lifestyle out of this stuff, with people chasing kids around 24/7, tweeting everything, following every tweet they make. It's just amazing the way this thing is developed. I don't have a great taste for it at all. That said, to the story itself, Leonard Fournette to LSU, that's the big story. They get another 5-star player and an outstanding safety. They don't get 3 others they were hoping to get. But the bottom line is you're not going to get them all. And kudos to Fournette, who played this close to the vest, didn't reveal anything. He kind of locked out the noise and made up his own mind.
He did, and this was a decision that was made a long time ago. And I think in a lot of these cases, they are made a long time ago. Mm-hmm. How do you come out and say, I'm going to announce my commitment on January 2nd when you don't have your mind made up?
Totally ridiculous.
But, you're right. And it's as someone who has been on the college end of it and seeing all of the attention that is generated from this and the interest that is generated from this, it's
ridiculous.
It's frustrating. Yeah, I mean,
it's disgusting to a large degree.
It is, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on SportsNOLA about, just go back and look 3 years later. Let's take the list of all of these players and see how many of them really pan out. Now, that's not to say every one of these kids that committed on Thursday, especially Leonard Fournette, will not be a star in some way, shape, or form, but it's not 100% guarantee. Now, that said, I think Leonard Fournette, you see the comparisons to Adrian Peterson out there, and I think they're justified. The kid is a tremendous athlete. He's a tremendous young man. He's grounded. He's very, much into faith and family, and I think that's, incredibly important. And, you wish him all the best at LSU, and I think he's got a chance to be a star with the Tigers. But you're right. It is just a huge production. Be interested to see what the ratings were like yesterday on that, because there was just so much attention to what was going on.
Well, we'll report the news here at SportsNOLA.com. You can rest assured when it comes to recruiting. As for all the other stuff 24/7 and who's tweeting what and following what and what nation they follow and what kind of food they like to eat for breakfast and everything else, we'll leave that to others.
Exactly.
All right. That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview, I should say. It's a preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend. God bless you.